Hello, everyone. This is your host, Wade Franson, and I'm here with an incredibly exciting sneak peek with a very special guest and a special co-host whom you'll meet in a moment, who has never appeared on the show before, and I'm very excited to introduce her. But first, Molly Engelhart, who founded the Sovereign Ranch after God led her from California to Texas. Her journey is an amazing one, and we're going to talk about dressing and keeping the garden and also building spiritual communities. Welcome to the studio, Molly.
Such an honor. I'm excited to talk about my favorite things to talk about: spiritual growth, God, and soil. That's I'm kind of a geek in those areas, so I'm so happy to talk about all of it.
I'm Angela Franson, Wade Franson's wife, and happy to be here with Molly, and just excited to meet you, Molly, as I'm really inspired by your work and what you're doing in Texas with your Sovereign Garden.
Sovereignty Ranch. It's called
Sovereignty Ranch. I love what you're doing. I'm really inspired by it, as we want to be part, I guess, of the solution. I want to be part of the solution of what's happening in the world around us. And I feel like what you're doing is part of the solution. And I'm really inspired and want to be part of this mission. I've followed Dr. Zach Bush for the last, 2 or 3 years, and love what he's doing. I'm actually a physical therapist and believe that food is our medicine. And so I'm thankful just to meet you and inspired by your work.
I love Dr. Zach Bush. He's super inspirational. I know him in real life, and I love him on Instagram and all the places that I get to hear him on podcasts. I think that when we think about, being part of the solution, even in that context, I want to shift the way that we think about it a little bit. We are the keystone species on the planet. It is our job to have dominion. It is our job to care for the garden, as he was saying, and so when we start to see ourselves as outside of or separate from the earth, separate from God, separate from creation, separate from nature, is when we think we have to be part of the solution. But if we can just integrate into our proper role on the planet, which is the keystone species, and remember we are divine and we are meant to be here, then anything is possible. And the way that I'm, being led and having that role is really to reconnect with these older ways of farming, where you're much more self-reliant and self-sufficient, and you're building soil and you're building this incredibly healthy microbiome that lives in the top 8 inches of topsoil. But when you think about that, it might seem disconnected from humanity, but 70% of that microbiology is also compatible with a healthy gut. And so when we think about all of the sickness that's going on the planet, it's not just that food is thy medicine. It is literally that soil is our medicine. We are designed by God to eat of the soil. So when we eat a vegetable that comes from a local farmer, or we grew it ourselves, it has all this microbiology. And if we think back to our grandmothers or our great grandmothers taking a head of cabbage and rinsing it and turning it into sauerkraut, that microbiology was then replenishing the microbiology in ourselves. But right now we eat of a sterile system and we are becoming sterile. And so just like your husband said a moment ago, after asking us to tend to the garden, then be fruitful and multiply. Well, we will not be able to be fruitful and multiply if we continue to eat of a sterile system. And so I believe that reconnecting with nature and building healthy soil is a connection to God. And when we have that creation in us from our food, we say, trust your gut instincts. What's your guttural feeling? That all comes from our relationship to nature and our relationship to creation, and microbiology in the soil is literally the foundation of creation on this planet, like in this physical realm that we live in.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. So what was your inspiration for starting the the regenerative farming? What
I had
was-
restaurants in Los Angeles, and I thought I had vegan restaurants, and I thought that veganism was the way, and I thought I was doing the right thing, and I drove a hybrid, and I drank my oat milk latte, and I brought my grocery store bags, my reusable bags to the grocery store, and my whole world got turned upside down listening to Graham Sate's TED Talk about carbon cycling, and that carbon is not a problem, and that soil is the answer, soil is the solution, and that food waste should not be turning to methane in our landfills, but it should be turning back to soil. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have these vegan restaurants and I'm creating so much garbage, so much methane. So I went to every guest in the restaurant and was like, you should buy a restaurant. I mean, you should buy a farm so I could bring all my compost there and we'll make soil. It's going to be awesome. It would be like the Clippers coach, or it would be like a celebrity. And they would just look at me. Oh. So one day I realized I'm the one I've been waiting for. I have to buy a farm. And so me and my husband found somebody that would do owner finance, and we started farming in California some years ago in 2018. And we brought our soil organic matter all the way from 0.01% to 20%. We brought all the food waste from our restaurants, and we really just got super inspired about soil health and the bureaucracy, the policies around COVID, and all of the bad management of California really destroyed these businesses that we had that were worth 20-something million dollars. And now we're starting over in Texas. And I didn't imagine that was the path that God had me on, but here I am out on the skinny branches asking for guidance every day.
Awesome. Thank you. I can't wait to hear more. Everyone, please join us for episode 125 on November 19th at 8 p.m. Central Time.